Okay. Hi, I'm Jenna Barnett with Millennial Mom on Focus TV, and today I have Rhonda Richards-Smith here. She is a nationally recognized dating and relationship expert. So we have a lot to talk about.
Always.
And a mom, super mom, right? She's
Yeah.
the mom to two girls. So, I mean, where to even begin? I know that you are the dating and relationship guru for producers, screenwriters. I know Us Weekly and on Bravo. So you're kind of all over the place. You are the one that people to go to for dating and relationship advice, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So tell me, what made you want to focus on this area of mental health?
Well, you know, I've been a therapist for many years. I think it's been about 15 years now. And so working a lot with women on different issues related to their self-worth, different issues and problems that they were having in their relationships and in their families. And what I found over time with working with these women is that relationships are so central and key to the way we feel about ourselves and the way we connect with others. I feel like relationships are an inherent like exchange of energy. And so if the energy is bad or negative, we can do as much as we want with ourselves, but sometimes it takes really looking at the choices that we're making in terms of who's in our lives, why they're in our lives, and why we attract certain people.
Right, that's so true. And you know, when you become a parent, it seems like that always adds a strain on the relationship, you know, whether it's differing parental views or, you know, just less time for each other. So what's your advice to moms out there and the dads, married couples, on like kind of keeping that spark alive and keeping the relationship strong when there is, you know, a screaming baby?
You know, I think it's all about priorities. Like, people talk a lot about balance, right? Having this perfect balance that doesn't really exist, to be quite honest. But really, it's about prioritizing what's important to you. And the reality is, if you have children and you're in a marriage or a long-term relationship and you want it to work, you really have to make that relationship the priority. If you do that, then everything else will fall into place. And you're also modeling positive relationships for your children. So that's part of your legacy as their parents as well. So it's incredibly important that we demonstrate what healthy relationships look like in our families.
That's a very good point. So I know you also, like we mentioned earlier, you give a lot of advice for journalists and screenwriters, and we talked about Us Weekly a little bit. So what are some of like the stories that you've commented on, and what's your advice that you've given these journalists and producers?
Oh, I've been some good ones. So really early on, I actually did an article for Us Weekly on Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani. At the time, their relationship was very new. So it was an article about rebound romances, and Us Weekly editors reached out to me and wanted to get some tips on whether or not those work. And so what I did share is that it is possible to make a rebound romance work, but the key really is ensuring that you're not bringing any of the extra baggage from the previous relationship over to your new one. Sometimes it takes more time to heal, sometimes less, but really making sure that you're with the person for the right reasons versus like a revenge romance.
Sometimes it's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell.
Because in the moment, I would think that, you know, you just are looking for that comfort. So
absolutely, and only time will tell. But for them, it looks like it's working out really great, which
so
is
far
awesome.
so good.
Yeah.
What about, you mentioned Bravo too? So how have you worked with Bravo?
I've worked with Bravo several times. They've done some general relationship articles about dating and like what are some of the best places to meet your dates. And just things to keep in mind when you're looking for a partner. And so what I share, particularly for a lot of women, is you want to ensure that you're attracting the partner that you say that you want. Oftentimes we say that we want certain qualities in a partner, right? So sometimes that doesn't always match up or correspond. So just making sure that you're doing some self-reflection to ensure that you're really being true to yourself and honest about what it is that you're looking for and who you want to ultimately partner with.
Wow, yeah. And I know Match.com's CEO had named you one of the top
You're going
in the country.
Yes.
That's quite the title.
That was exciting. That was very exciting.
How did that come about, and what does that mean for you?
It was really amazing. So they reached out earlier this year, and I was shocked, complete cold call. But they asked me to fly out, so they flew me out to Dallas for their Match Dating Expert Summit. which happened this summer, which was amazing. So there were a total of 15 dating and relationship experts from all over the country. And we talked about Match and their strategies for matching people. We discussed a lot of the analytics, where the brand is going in the future. And they just kind of wanted to get our take on what their strategies are moving forward, get some tips from us and some thoughts on our evaluation of where they're going. And it was a really awesome and amazing experience. The reality is that the analytics can only take you so far.
Right.
Sometimes you have to consider the human element.
Got to get in deep.
You got to get in deep. You have some folks who will self-sabotage and say that they're ready to date, when in reality, all of their actions are showing you that maybe they're not quite ready, or there's some other issues that they need to deal with first. So I think we were able to provide them with some helpful feedback, I hope. It was great.
Well, speaking of that, what's your advice for any single moms out there that are looking to get back into the dating game? I mean, I can imagine it can be a little scary. So what do you say to them?
It's incredibly scary. I think especially if it's been a while since you've been dating as a single mom. Technology obviously has shifted dramatically in the last several years in terms of online dating and dating apps. I think just really being sure that you're open and that you're ready. I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on single moms to get back out there, but you really want to be sure that you're ready for yourself. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you're ready or if everyone's telling you you're ready. Only you'll really know if you're ready. And just taking your time and being okay with the fact that you might not be ready for a serious relationship, but maybe you're just dating for practice, or you're dating to get to know people. And that's completely fine. You don't always have to date ultimately with the plan to marry someone.
Right.
You can just date for fun, take it slow, and just see where it goes.
I love it. That's great advice.
Thank you.
So what's next for you? What are you currently working on? I'd love to hear about that.
I have some projects I'm really excited about. Next year, a lot of my readers have reached out and said that they would want me to work with them more closely in terms of any relationship issues that they're having. So I am going to be developing some online courses that'll be launching early in 2018.
That's great.
Yeah, just to work
People need it.
Yeah, just to work a little closer with folks on some of the specific issues around maybe their upbringing, some of the messages that they received as kids about what a relationship should look like. And so I'm going to be launching those courses more than likely in February of 2018. So I'm really excited about that. So that's the next big project.
Amazing. So today we're talking a lot about influential moms and what you're doing to influence other moms and women in general out there. So I'd love to hear, how you've been influencing moms, obviously with your mental health background, that's really helpful for them. So I just would love to hear, how you look at yourself as an influencer and how you're helping moms out there.
It's so funny. So starting out, I don't know that I always viewed myself as an influencer per se. I started a really small blog years ago. I didn't think anyone was reading it, to be honest. But it was just really important for me to get my perspective out there in the hopes that it would just help at least one person. And it's grown quite a bit over time, obviously. But I think for myself, doing my best to lead by example and making healthy decisions for my life. And not just with romantic relationships, but with friendships, with the colleagues that I choose to interact with. I'm very meticulous and careful about who I work with, who I allow into my space. And I don't know that that's something that we always grow up hearing about, just kind of being protective and careful about who you enter into relationship with, not just romantic, but overall. And I think that over the long time, that served me really well to just really be careful about who I entertain in my life and who I don't, and really understanding and standing and empowering myself to know that that's my right and that's my choice to have one person in my life and to not have another.
Wow. Yeah. And so being that you're a relationship expert, does that put a lot of pressure on you to have like a perfect relationship with your husband? Because if it was me, I'd be like, everyone's watching me.
Oh, if you could hear my husband, absolutely. He's like, oh, here's the relationship expert. Here she comes. It's hilarious. I mean, yes and no. I think I'm pretty transparent. No relationship is perfect. It's always a work in progress. It's something that you have to work at day after day after day. And it's a daily decision that you have to make, particularly in a marriage, to continue to be committed to someone. So we just take it one day at a time. But we're open and we're transparent. And I think that for the couples that we do have around us, that's what's so incredibly important.
Right.
No one has a perfect relationship. But we have a nice network of folks and we support one another. So I think that's helpful as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And how do you balance, you have 2 kids, you have a husband, you have a career. How do you balance it all?
I prioritize. I don't know that I balance always in the best way. I juggle. One ball is always up in the air at some point. But I do what I can to prioritize. I made a specific list of what my priorities are for my life. And I think I encourage all women to do that, to just literally write down what are the priorities that you have for your life. So when a decision comes up and you're juggling and you're figuring out, okay, one ball is going to drop, what's it going to be? I always refer back to that list. And that helps guide me so much. It's made my life so much easier. I'm not as stressed out because I'm already clear on what my priorities are for my life. And it just really simplifies the decision-making process when those moments come.
That's great advice. I mean, I need to go home and make a list.
I love lists. I'm a big list proponent.
Me too.
So.
I love them too. So thank you so much for being here today. It was so great to get your insight. If there was one piece of advice that you could give in terms, I know this is probably an impossible question, in terms of just relationships in general, what would it be?
My one piece of advice would be that if you do decide that you are ready for a relationship, you have to make sure that you're ready and committed to being vulnerable. That's a very difficult concept for people to wrap their heads around often. And it's normal to be protective of yourself to some extent, but in order to really have a thriving, healthy, long-term relationship, you have to be willing to be honest and be vulnerable with the other person. Otherwise, much of what you're communicating, whether you think that so or not, is going to end up being lies. It's not true. So you have to be open to being vulnerable in order to have effective communication for a healthy relationship.
I love it. That's such good advice. Now you know. Everyone knows. Well, thank you again so much for being here. It was awesome to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I'm Jenna Barnett with Millennial Mom on Focus TV. Thanks for joining us.